Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. I am joined today with the amazing Dr. Amy LaRue, and I just want to dive right into this conversation. So, I'm going to start off by diving into your bio, Amy, but welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's just so fun to share just knowledge about natural women's health with someone that's like-minded.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love it. So, Dr. Amy and I, just for a little backstory, are on a similar Catholic Women in Business board. And it was so neat when she said, "Oh, I work as a naturopathic doctor in women's health." And I was like, how do we not know each other? So, I'm so excited to introduce her to you all. So, Dr. Amy is a mama to three precious kiddos. She's been married for 13 years and she is always seeking knowledge and tweaking her routine so that her family thrives in body, mind, and especially in spirit. I love that. Amy earned her doctorate in naturopathic medicine 10 years ago in Portland, Oregon, at the National University of Natural Medicine, and got her bachelor's degree in dietetics and pre-med from Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. She currently holds her license as a naturopathic doctor in Vermont. In her virtual naturopathic wellness consulting practice, she works with women to help them accomplish their goals of holistic hormonal health and reach optimal wellness. I also love this. Amy has moved back to the South 5 years ago after pursuing her dreams in the Northwest for 15 years. She was in Jackson Hole, then Portland, Oregon, and Bend. She misses the mountains and beauty of the West, but is loving small town beach life. I love that so much. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Me too. Okay, so tell me, we just want to start off by really kind of talking about some hormone lab testing. So maybe we should just start with like from a very basic, like how does hormone lab testing look different for someone that's looking at it from like as a naturopathic doctor than they would say from a conventional doctor's approach?
Well, in my experience working with women for the past 10 years, I find that often conventionally the tests are just ordered randomly. And so they'll say, "Oh, I got my labs done. I just got a progesterone and an estrogen, and it wasn't timed with any particular point in the cycle." And that information doesn't really serve us very well. It's because there's no context for it. Most of the research and information available is based on a timed test. So an estradiol cycle days 2 to 4 typically, and a progesterone 5 to 7 days after ovulation. So I think that's the biggest difference. Or women are told that hormones don't matter, and it's certainly not implicated in their mental health, even though we know progesterone is majorly implicated in our mental health. So I think that there's just maybe a little bit more dismissiveness conventionally, and not to knock it. Some doctors are very well informed, but a lot of times I hear this that they just told me it doesn't matter. Let's just put you on birth control, which are hormones. So why wouldn't the hormones matter? It gets a little confusing. So in naturopathic medicine, you're always looking to figure out why the body is manifesting these symptoms. What is underlying it? The hormones could be imbalanced, and then you also still want to know why. So you want to see that, but you are always asking why.
Yeah, so with particularly hormone imbalances, I mean, what are some of the things you see as to what are some of those reasons why?
So a lot of people have gut issues. So indigestion, diarrhea, constipation, gas and bloating after meals, food intolerances. And a lot of people think that's just normal. Like, "Oh, well, I had ice cream." Well, not everybody that eats ice cream has diarrhea, So that is a big one. A lot of your estrogen is metabolized in your gut. So an unhealthy gut microbiome and system with a lot of inflammation can be one of the problems. I think one of the biggest problems for moms in today's society is stress. So they are trying to do all of these things, and their cortisol can be high. Sometimes it can be low if they have been chronically stressed for a long amount of time, even just low grade chronic stress. So they're not able to either make enough DHEA, which the adrenal glands make, which is the precursor hormone for everything else. So DHEA is at the tip of the iceberg, and you will make everything else from that. There's some argument on whether cortisol kind of steals, and making of cortisol steals from other hormones, some argument there. But kind of that notion of like, if you're constantly in fight or flight, your body is not really looking to procreate. So you're not making optimal hormones. So it's really digging into that. And it's interesting. I talked to two women this morning. A lot of what we do is a lot of life coaching too, because yes, these hormones matter and supplements are wonderful and botanicals, but it can be a band-aid if we're not addressing the why. And how can you modify your lifestyle to better accommodate your health?
100%. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I cannot believe I still get shocked when someone says to me, "But Rita, my gut health doesn't have anything to do with my hormones." And I just wanna, oh, honey,
I
there's so
know.
much there.
Well, I really can't say enough how often women are so dismissed. And so they may have mentioned that to someone, a provider before, and they're blown off. And so they expect this person to be knowledgeable and they trust what they say. So I think what we really have to remember too is to have some discernment in who you're asking for advice. If you're asking a conventional doctor with no training in functional or natural medicine for advice on supplements, you're probably not going to get a good answer. Or, some of them are humble enough to say that's not my area of expertise, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. This reminded me too. I was at a restorative reproductive women's health conference, so a bunch of physicians there, and it kind of like the gamut, right? Some functional medicine, some doing, just total out of the box stuff, and then some very, like doing very conventional treatments. And one of the physicians did this amazing presentation on stress and how like we totally undervalue the impact of stress on our hormones. And I remember I walked out of the room and I was talking to one of my physician friends who is very conventional. And he said, "So stress is really kind of a big deal, huh?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad. Like, I'm so glad that we're talking about these things." And also for providers that are so sweet and humble to say like, "Whoa, I didn't realize." And it's not always their fault, right? It's not always, sometimes we get mad at the doctor. Why did someone help
Yeah.
me? But it's not always their fault if they're not told. And where does the trust end? I guess like they implicitly trust their program that they got trained in, and we trust them to tell us that these things matter or not. So yeah, it's good to have these conversations and to remember that it does matter.
Yes. And listen to your body and your intuition and build a healthcare team for yourself rather than relying on one person to know everything.
Yeah,
Many, many people use their gynecologist as their primary care doctor. That's not their training. And not that they can't do that, but they can't. They're using them as their psychiatrist and their OB and their primary care. And I just want people to remember that we really need to build a team of experts if we have a lot going on. It's really not a one provider approach is as something I really think we need to get away from. We need more PT, we need more nutritionists, we need um, more just more of a team effort for people to actually heal.
for sure. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so true. Okay, so say then somebody knows that stuff is off with their hormones, or maybe they don't totally know. They know that they just have these different things going on. And
Mhm.
so they want to do some hormone testing. What are some options, and what do you then prefer to use to help them?
Okay. So I like to start with saying that we are always looking at the individual in front of us. So what I do for one person is different than what I do for the next person, even if they have the same symptoms, because the root is often different. So we want to take the labs into context with the story and with the symptom pictures. So we're not just chasing numbers and lab values. we're recognizing, oh, you're feeling better. And this might not be reflected in your labs, but it's working, because labs are a snapshot in time most of the time. So we need to remember that first. So 3 options would be serum, saliva, and urine. Serum being your blood, getting a blood draw. So that's far and away the most common because insurance typically pays for it, and conventional doctors will typically order it if you request it. I do that with a lot of my clients. If you have insurance, might as well use it, but request this very long list. I guess say, here's your wish list. They're probably going to scoff and they might say no, but this is what we would like to see, or people can self order, just so people are aware of that. You can cash pay for any lab that you want. There are many websites out there. I don't think it's a great idea to do without some sort of provider to help you navigate the results. But anyway, that is an option. So serum's the most common and really helpful for the basic hormones when you're just starting to look. So an estrogen, a progesterone, a FSH, an LH, a testosterone. I mean, a cortisol, there's tons that can be done that way. And then saliva. So that's where you're really just kind of spitting into this test tube. I have done this before, and you'd be surprised how much saliva you need. So it's not like just one little spit and you've filled up your little capsule. So that's another one that really is good for looking at a flow over a day. Really common for cortisol when people are looking for adrenal dysfunction, and cortisol curve dysfunction is the most common one I've seen. But then also hormones, people use it for that. So if you want to look at what's happening over a month, because it's really not realistic for most people to go and get a blood draw multiple times a month. I mean, it would be so cumbersome. So that's a good one. And then urine, which is collected over 24 hours and reflects more what is bioavailable in the body, which is most pertinent to us. Like what can I actually use? I mean, we still want to see if a lot of it's being bound up and things like that. But the other part of this is that while there are all these types of tests, the cost varies greatly. So we take that into consideration too.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine so. Um, okay, so we have the point in time. We have the picture. Then how do we use that to dive deeper? How do we make that to be meaningful information?
So let's just say someone's going to go in to do the blood draw. So they're going to do they're going to do their estrogen, their FSH, their LH in the first part of their cycle. So they're still going to have to go in twice. So sometimes this takes a couple months. Every time I try to do mine, I'm like, ugh, missed the window and wait, till next time. So we're going to take those numbers and look at the optimal range. The range on some of these is huge. Like progesterone could be 3 to, I think it goes up to like 50 or something. I mean, it's a huge range. So we really want to see that based on the person's age, based on what their goals are. Are they trying to get pregnant, or do they have whatever symptoms and whatever issues they're working on? So we put it into context, and then there are different botanicals and lifestyle changes that we can use to improve upon those numbers. Now, if you're looking for an estrogen to progesterone ratio, which would give you more information about something like estrogen dominance, that can be done the same time as the progesterone. That is when you're looking at that ratio around 5 to 7 days after ovulation. So you'll typically hear that day 19 to 21. That is only based on a 28 to 30 day cycle. So if you don't have that long of a cycle, you have to do a lot of math. And truly a lot of this, I'm like, I'll just figure out the day for you, and I will send you a message and you go to get the test done on these days, because it's really, and this through helping people chart, it can be just overwhelming, especially if you've never charted before or you haven't been using any sort of like fertility awareness NFP. People are like, you say what?
So true. Okay, so then can we do with that point in time, or even if we need to have it done like, a couple different tests throughout the month, help give us the story, or do we still need more to like really be able to dive deeper into that?
So it depends a little bit. Like for an instance, menopause. You really need a series of FSH levels and estrogen levels. You know, just perimenopause is like a 4-year process. So the hormones are erratic by nature. I mean, this wild ride people are taking on like puberty, similar. They mirror one another. So you really want some consecutive numbers there. Same with something like premature ovarian failure. You're looking at multiple numbers. You're not going to just take one FSH and say, oh, here you are. You're in this. You need a few. I think it's at least 3. So you take that information along with the symptoms, and then you start working and creating a plan, which, like I said, it will always for me includes botanicals and nutrients, depending on the situation of what's high or low. And then I love to have people cycle sync too, where they're syncing up their exercise and their social life and as much as they can with the phase of their cycle so that they can support those hormone levels, seed cycling, things like that. So that's what we do with the information. And then for many people, it's also just, I think it gives them a little grace for, that, okay, I'm not just irritable and yelling at everyone because I'm a bad person. It's my hormones. Yeah. Assisting in this terrible, coping mechanism. So it really helps us just kind of point the direction. I have certainly seen instances where I thought we were going to see a progesterone or an estrogen imbalance, and the person's cortisol was so low. So it can point the direction for how you want to move forward. I've heard a lot of women say, I feel like I'm just pulling at straws. They just order all these different things online because they're supposed to help with this and that. And that's not their issue.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the more common things that you find yourself like, whether it's telling them to try or incorporating for them when hormones are off?
Herbally, I love maca. Maca is probably what you hear about the most, which the common name is horny goat weed. So people are like, what? It's really not. It's really not all about libido. In fact, that's people's last symptom to mention. Oh, by the way, I have a low libido. Like they could care less. Most women, I think, often. So maca is a really great adaptogenic herb. Adaptogenic herbs are just that. They help you adapt to stress more easily. So they work on multiple areas of the body, but it also helps to increase estrogen. So I love that one. If that's the case, if the estrogen's a little low. And then I love Vitex, which is chaste tree berry, for helping boost progesterone in a more herbal way. I now more than ever I do think it's helpful to have a value before you start these herbs, because yes, they are botanicals, but that doesn't mean they aren't potent and powerful. So you want to make sure someone isn't already high in some of these areas where you're just taking all this stuff. And, really my biggest concern with hormones being out of balance is cancers and reproductive, breast cancer, things like that. So I'm cautious there. But Vitex, I love that. Ashwagandha is another great adaptogen. It's been shown to increase testosterone. The research was only done in men, but we can assume that it also is helping in women. And then things like DHEA, if that's needed, sometimes that will really boost energy, and it can also have that benefit with testosterone. So those are some of like the top ones, but also blends. So cortisol manager is one of my favorites. So that's a blend of herbs to help just calm the nervous system. I do think, and I didn't mention this earlier, I think an hyperactive nervous system stuck in fight or flight is one of the most common issues that women in today's society are facing. Women with young kids, I think that is one of our biggest issues. There is far too much expectation for us, So So those are like my top hitters, but there's things like different types of magnesiums. Zinc is also used as a cofactor to make testosterone. So there's some markers that you can look at on blood work that can help, an alkaline phosphatase that can help you see if the zinc is maybe a little out of balance. You can just test it too. So there's a lot of other nutrients that sometimes we need to look at. Are they low in iron? Are they low in B12? All these other factors, because I think fatigue is one of the main symptoms that is mentioned. I'm so tired every day at 2 o'clock, and I can't get up in the morning, and a lot of things associated with just uh, fatigue, drinking a lot of caffeine, things like that. But those are some of my favorites, and a lot of what I take. I love L-theanine, which is a calming amino acid found in green tea extract. We go through a lot of Calm Pro is the product that I like. Go through a lot of that in my health.
I love it. That's so good. And I know too, another thing that I'm sure you're always considering, Dr. Amy, but for our listeners more, also when, Dr. Amy's talking about these different things that she's using, before you go out and do this for your own self, you really need to be sure that digestion is working well too. We talked about that earlier, but that's a big thing. If we're trying to support hormones and digestion isn't working, or you're constipated, or you're not breaking things down, we really kind of we have these foundations, right, of our health. And we just have to be sure before you all go out and enjoy Dr. Amy's list of things that she loves to use,
Right.
be sure that you're taking some of these other steps too.
I just recently gave a talk, and I said, if there is no drug, natural or pharmaceutical in the world that can replace the benefits of exercise. None. In fact, they just did a review this year that showed that exercise is 1.5 times more effective than the typical pharmaceutical, drug or therapy for anxiety and depression.
Wow.
It doesn't, and I think we have to get away from it. You don't have to spend an hour in a CrossFit gym. I mean, you don't have to be a hero. Just something consistently every day. So 20 to 30 minutes, like that is a huge part of restoring your health. It is absolutely not about just supplementing. And there's a saying, you can't supplement your way out of bad habits. I mean, if you have a terrible diet and you don't exercise and you work 15 hours a day or whatever, I mean, that might help, but they probably not over the long term. So that is an important feature. And we do, although I will say, I will still start a plan while we're working on the foundations of health, because honestly, the foundations of health, the sleep, the exercise, the nutrition, the pooping every day, restoring the gut, that is a long-term process. And so in order to have the energy and the motivation to do those things, you have to feel better first. And that's where I love vitamins, nutraceuticals, herbs, all of those things, is they can build that bridge. And sometimes medication, some people need a antidepressant temporarily to get them to be able to do anything else. And so we really just take stock of that, and then slowly we start making changes, because baby steps is really what all these habit experts, there's a million books now about all the habits. It's really the micro changes that last. If you think you're just going to January 1st, you're going to turn over a new leaf and be a new person, unfortunately, it just doesn't last.
Yeah.
So
I love it. It's so true. I was this online workout guru girl that I follow. I like to do, I'm a big fan of the 20 minutes at home. I just don't have time to drive to the gym and do all the things. But she always says, she's like, what's the best kind of workout? And she said, the one that you'll do. Right. It's so true. So, Dr. Amy, tell me where everybody can find you and what your clinic offers.
Okay. So I have a virtual naturopathic wellness coaching practice. So you can find me on my website, amylaruewellness.com. And there's an option there to book a call. I do free 15-minute consults to just see if we're a good fit. And if I'm not a good fit, I probably know someone that is. There are experts in Lyme disease. There are experts in cancer and naturopathic cancer treatments and things like that, that I refer out for, or, recommend if I'm not the right fit. But I almost always know of something that is, if it's not me. So I really like to chat with women and just, make sure that we're doing all the things. Um, and just, focusing on finding someone that you really resonate with is so important. I can't stress that enough. And if you don't like your provider, please go find a new one. I can't tell you how many women I've talked to that are like, "Ugh, I just don't like my doctor." And then a year will go by. Have you switched to a new doctor? No, but he's the worst. I'm like, "What?" So I really just advocate for yourself, keep learning. I think we all have to take the approach that as a patient, you have to go in with armed with information like what we're doing right now, and the ability to advocate for yourself and to cut ties when it's not a good fit, and to build yourself a team of people that can help you, whether that's a naturopathic doctor, a nutritional um, expert, a chiropractor, a PT, a medical doctor, like all the things can really help.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that. And always remembering that doctor works for you and you have
Yeah,
the ability to fire them.
exactly.
But that you don't have to do this alone. So I love that so much. Well, ladies, I hope you really enjoyed this conversation and I pray that it helps you wherever you're at just feel a little bit more encouraged and empowered to take your health back into your own hands.